Have you ever been lost before? Have you ever felt lost? I live in London, one of the most iconic cities in the world, with millions of tourists visiting each year. And despite this place quite literally being a maze, London is relatively easy to get around on foot. On the flip side, games like Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto 5 are some of the most popular games in the world, with millions of people playing these games each year. And despite their worlds quite literally being mazes, it's surprisingly easy to navigate their virtual environments. But have you ever wondered why it's easy? Well, like all good stories, this one started on Reddit. Posted by user Jam Hour 2 years ago, do you think visual communication makes a difference in society? It's for my uni project. Me too. User Ham Rain replies, look up wayfinding. So that's exactly what I, alongside OP, did. Thank you. And this is how this video begins. What is wayfinding? The process or activity of ascertaining one's position and planning and following a route. The hospital uses color to assist with wayfinding. The shopping mall might have one of those giant screens. I'm sure you've seen at least one of these on the sidewalk before, and how can we forget Transport for London having the audacity to call these maps? Seriously, what am I looking at? Basically, wayfinding is all these things we take for granted. Signs to stop people from getting lost, and you can find these signs everywhere, even in a supermarket. These signs populate our modern environments because they're tools put in place to help us get around, understand space, and most importantly, they prevent us from getting lost. But what stops us from getting lost in the games that we play? Well, that's obvious. Maps. Most games that boast virtual worlds to explore come pre-packaged with maps and mini-maps. In Insomniac's newly released Spider-Man 2, you can even fast travel to exact points on said map seamlessly, ensuring that players never get lost. But what about the impact wayfinding design has had on games as a whole? Well, to answer that question, I needed help from a few professionals.
I think because now games have become so huge and worlds are becoming so much bigger that we have to do some sort of wayfinding in order to help players navigate the world. I mean, you look at games like Skyrim, GTA, like those worlds are massive, right? I think some games that do a really awesome job of that is like Ghost of Tsushima because they do it in a diegetic way. When you select on the map where you want to go, they have this mechanic where they have wind that kind of puts in the direction where to go and stuff like that. So that's like a really diegetic way of how they do it.
Navigation is really important in games. If you didn't have navigation, you wouldn't know how to get through the game. And if you look at the navigation, how they do in Firewatch, you've got the little signs there. So they've actually built in wayfinding into the game, as well as the maps. A lot of the game design is focused on how can we create these little monuments or markers or recognizable features in the game that you know where you are based on those. So wayfinding is probably the most important thing.
There's no doubt that the art of wayfinding design has bled into the virtual worlds we as gamers explore, revolutionizing how players navigate complex game environments. For example, a game like Minecraft features a variety of biomes. Each has its own unique characteristics, temperatures, and terrain. Whether they realize it or not, players will use these biomes as reference points to orient themselves within the game world. You'd know if you built your base near a sand biome on top of a tall mountain, right? And would finding that base be a little more challenging if your surroundings all look the same? Wayfinding design elements can be found in pretty much all of the games we play. And I really do mean all of them. This screenshot of Mario Odyssey alone shows around a dozen examples of wayfinding design, numerous subtle design elements that continuously guide and reassure the player throughout the game world. And this game actually has an in-game map, but to those who played it, did you honestly ever use it to navigate? I know I didn't, because all of these wayfinding elements ensured that I, the player, rarely if ever felt lost. And this is perfect for a game that's primarily geared towards kids and casual gamers. But talking about kids, let's talk about a game that I used to play as a kid. GTA 5. Sorry mum, I know my younger self wasn't supposed to play this game, but more importantly, my younger self used to question why I could travel from Vespucci Beach to Vinewood Hills, Sandy Shores and Mount Chiliad using just the world around me. But I guess now it makes sense.
When it comes to games like GTA, because it's based off the real world locations, we use things like freeway signs, stop signs and stuff, like so players can kind of already understand like, oh, like the sign tells me to take the freeway or I can take this freeway here. So I think because we use a lot of real world signage and stuff in the game, it was able to help. And I think too, having things like landmarks in the world, that way players can kind of see diegetically in the world, like, okay, I could go to that big mountain there.
If the environment is very immersive, then there's no reason to think it can't replicate a real world experience extremely well, because if you're in a situation where you're trying to remember where you've been using visual cues or other information around you. In fact, there is definitely a link between playing video games and being good at finding your way around. And there was one study which showed that people who played a lot of video games when they were younger ended up as adults being above average at navigating and being confident at finding their way. I think that's because video games often, you're dealing with a lot of facial factors and geometry, and depending on what games you're playing, but all that kind of stuff, anything spatial is going to affect your navigation, your orienteering, wayfinding skills in a positive way.
Now, I can already hear some of you saying, aren't these worlds easy to navigate because we just get used to it being our surroundings? But the answer's slightly more complicated. Let's start with the tools that help us move around. Our navigational GPS systems, aka our Google Maps, physical maps, the mini maps and waypoints found in our games. They all give us a false sensibility of our surroundings, fooling us into thinking we know the world around us when we don't. Granted, implementing maps in a video game can be done in some pretty cool ways, and I'm not here to say that maps aren't helpful, but they're a blessing and a curse. We've become over-reliant on these navigational crutches, and as a result, the very essence of exploration and discovery has been stripped away.
Because I feel like for me personally as level designer, I would want the players to be able to navigate through the world. If they open the map here and there, okay, cool. But if they're constantly like opening up the map like every couple of minutes, then I feel like in that case, like, okay, well, we gotta make sure there's a way to get it to a place where players can actually move through the world. Because I'm sure we play games before, right, where you go around, you're like, oh, where am I going again? Opens up map. Goes for another 5 steps. Okay, where am I going again? Opens a map, right? So
yeah, because we pay attention too much to technology, in my opinion. Google says go right, I'm going to the right, not focusing, or maybe is the better way to get in somewhere, or maybe is the shorter, or maybe it's more safer. We are just seeing the screen of our iPhone or phone, that we are not paying attention to the environment where exactly we are, and we are not paying so much attention to the wayfinding system that exists in a certain space.
And as I tilt the camera, like get closer, an actual video game, bro. Even if you walk, like, this is ridiculous. You see this right here is an augmented travel experience, no real one. It really is simple. Wayfinding design allows us to immerse by creating spaces where every curve, color, and symbol plays a crucial role in guiding our journeys. It allows us to navigate these spaces organically instead of artificially. Follow me. If you found these shapes in an open space, which do you think would be easier not only to remember, but also to navigate? It may be tempting to pick the 4 circles, but remember that the key to wayfinding is knowing as we go. I know that as I travel, I start by going past a square, then a triangle over here, followed by a circle, and then finally an X. Perhaps one of these shapes is colored. Maybe one is bigger than the other. Whereas over here I know nothing. Everything looks the same, everything is a circle, it lacks any distinguishing features. There's no visual communication, no identity. And places need to have strong visual and spatial languages because it helps people and players move around. Almost like walking into a house and knowing that one room is a bedroom, another is a living room, a bathroom, a kitchen, etc., simply based on how they look and feel. I just realized you can't read this. It says strong. I'm a bit silly, I know. Vespucci Beach, Vinewood Hills, Sandy Shores, Paleto Bay all have their own visual language, making it easy for the player to not only remember and get used to their surroundings, but also to navigate. And throughout the Minecraft world, players can encounter natural formations like mountains, caves, and floating islands, as well as human-made structures like villages, temples, and mine shafts. Visual aids that help players in creating mental maps of their surroundings, helping them find their way around.
the whole thing about those visual cues is the things that kind of help people understand, like in the back of their head, like, okay, that's the way to go. Or it's like when I play Horizon Zero Dawn and they have like the yellow tubes or like the white edges on the rocks, I like, oh, well, I have to go that way because there's that visual cue, right? I think Naughty Dog does great ways of able to do that for players because they use like yellow and blue as ways to guide players around. The big challenge with it is doing it in a way where it matches with the environment So essentially, you're holding the player's hand without them realizing it, and it's a thing where you want to do it in a way where like it's enough to where people can understand like, okay, this is a cue I'm looking for, in a way where too it's not like blaringly obvious like a stop sign. For me, one of the best games to do something like that is Ghost of Tsushima, because with Ghost of Tsushima, they do a really awesome job of where as you're going through the world, each space feels very different in terms of like shapes and color theory. They have a section where it's like a whole forest where it's all nothing but completely gold leaves, and it's called the Golden Forest. Then you can go to a place where it's like a field of white flowers, and then you can go to somewhere else where it's like a big marshland. So I think Ghost to me does a really awesome job with that. You never really feel lost. You kind of understand like, okay, like I'm in this area, I'm in this spot, right? So I think Ghost does.
Again, an in-game or physical map would be needed if someone were trying to navigate this. But imagine if every shape in this diagram, were strategically placed to help you. In that case, who needs a map? Well, I'll tell you who needs maps. Londoners. If you're wondering why I'm out of breath, it's because I've had to slide on that chair for like 10 times now, so your boy's cardio is weak.
In 2008, a global survey showed that people got lost in London more than anywhere else in the world. Something about the city made it very difficult to know.
So Transport for London, the group responsible for helping Londoners get around, decided that it was their job to help people navigate this concrete jungle. So now you'll find these things everywhere. Totems, or as I like to call them, decision points. These displays contain two maps, one large one, one small one. One is really detailed, the other only shows you what's nearby. This is intentional. It's a neat little wayfinding design trick to help people build up their mental maps, to help you visualize your surroundings. A lot like the maps and mini-maps found in your open world games. But there's something better and bigger than a decision point. And you tend to find them all over these open spaces. London's quite literally full of them.
Landmarks. Those things that help you orient yourself, those big things you can't miss, or those little details that allow you to rely on the world itself to guide you from point A to point B.
There's an area of the brain, the hippocampus, which seems to have evolved to help us remember places and have a feeling of being orientated and also just getting from A to B. And that part of the brain has a bunch of spatial cells that respond very profoundly to landmarks.
The idea is that landmarking is you know where to go, but you haven't arrived. It is literally a beacon, and that beacon shows you which way to go even if you don't know what the route's going to be. You know where you're going. So landmarking is really important to get people to figure out where things are at. And landmarks can be things like signs, and they can also be just building shapes.
Landmarks are crucial because you always want to navigate people from point A to B, from B to C, C to D, and so on. And then the landmarks can help you. They're like signals for the user. Okay, over there, I will find this kind of information, what is needed for me.
Anything in a place that helps you remember that place enhances your experience of it, because it allows you to recognize the place as being familiar. So those landmarks that you can see across a distance, they will trigger that idea of the place for you because of the way the brain responds to landmarks. If you can recognize the landmarks around you, they give you a solid picture of the place you're in your brain, one that you can recall again and again. I would say they're really important to this idea of building a cognitive map.
Okay. We get it. Landmarks are important. However, in these game worlds, are they important at all? Well, here's the thing. Since launch, I've played Tears of the Kingdom without the use of maps, and as a result, the immersive experience has been amplified, encouraging exploration and discovery, forcing me to rely on landmarks such as distant mountains or unique structures to find my way. But I was curious as to how a mapless adventure would affect other players. So what better way to find out than to ask other players? I asked 3 individuals to play Tears of the Kingdom for a week without using maps.
And here's what they had to say.
Without using the maps, it felt a little bit more immersive. I enjoyed the game more because I wasn't using fast travel as much, and I tried to travel through the map as I would naturally. I was paying more attention to the landmarks, I guess, because the game is so recognizable and so unique in its design. And since the game has like these falling rocks as well, you could just go up those and look around as if you were on a looking tower.
I was paying attention to my surroundings a lot more. And one thing that really helped me was the elevation that Tears of the Kingdom affords. Sometimes I would like spawn in a hot air balloon so I could go all the way up to the top and be like, oh, so that's where Terrytown is, and that's where I was, and that's how far I explored.
Like at first I found it really interesting because I immediately found that I was paying a lot more attention to like the environment I was in. Also, because I'm near the end of the game, I have like a pretty good mental map of like what Hyrule looks like and like how to get around. So I didn't need to look for things on the physical ground because I already kind of knew where they were because I've been playing about 90 hours at this point. It is absolutely clear that whoever's designed Tears of the Kingdom did so with navigation in mind. If you look around, you're always going to be able to see a landmark that can guide your movement.
Like every 40 seconds, you'll see something that you will want to do. Every 40 seconds, you'll see something that you want to interact with, and it just keeps the experience fresh. Like, I would remember where certain things are. When I got to a certain location, I would kind of use the surroundings as kind of like my own map. I would be like, I'm going in this direction, and what do I see here? And what could those observations lead to like where I'm supposed to go?
Each part of the map is so distinct, and the draw distance is so big, you can actually see the whole map from one end to another. And Ganon's Castle, as the main landmark, was a really good way to center myself. There's so many little details that you could miss if you're just using the map and beaming straight to the waypoints. There's a lot more you can notice and see and experience.
Without the map, the world got significantly bigger, not only because I had to walk it, which was a pain in the ass, but also because in walking those spaces, I had to like open my eyes a little bit more to the spaces that I was in. And that made like new environments in particular a lot more fun because I felt I was less goal oriented and more like journey oriented. I was spending a lot more time looking left and right as opposed to like forward. Like clearly this Purapad, right, is supposed to be some sort of Nintendo's like version of like having a smartphone. Our navigation of like the quote unquote real world, our immersion in the real world is filtered through our phones, through the mini maps that we're using on our phones, right?
There's this thing called psychogeography, which delves into how environments can impact our emotions and actions. It touches on how purposeful wandering fosters a deeper connection to one's surroundings, allowing an individual to absorb the nuances and rhythms of a space that are often overlooked in directed navigation. It was interesting to see that despite the challenges of navigating without a map, all three players found that the game became more immersive and enjoyable, that they were able to connect with the virtual environment on a deeper level, able to establish an intricate relationship with their surroundings. Things that all resonate with the principles of psychogeography, where again, the act of wandering without a clear objective can lead to a heightened awareness of space. Our mapless adventures allowed us to roam the virtual world of Hyrule freely, because when you remove this from the equation, the simple act of travel becomes an engaging experience, transforming the mundane into a captivating journey. You're immersed in the world around you rather than being fixated on a physical map or a blip tucked away in the corner of a screen. This is why wayfinding design is so essential. It isn't merely about providing players or people with directions. It's about immersing them in a world where every street, every alley, and every hidden corner tells a story. It goes beyond guiding us through spaces. It shapes how we perceive and connect with environments. And in understanding wayfinding, we uncovered the hidden language of spaces, whether in the real world or these virtual ones.
Okay, so I kind of lied. Wayfinding isn't all visual. It's also very spatial. What does that mean? Well, how about you like and subscribe, and I'll keep explaining. I got all day. I'm serious.
In the real world, visual cues are scattered like breadcrumbs, guiding us effortlessly through our urban environments. Whether it be the street signs that nudge us in the right direction, the colors that distinguish one building from another, or the symbols that transcend language barriers. Yet wayfinding isn't just about seeing, it's about building.
Our brains are capable of constructing maps from whatever information we may feed them, turning mere sights into intricate navigational aids. And unlike many of our famous cities, the virtual environments found in our video games are built from the ground up with this in mind. Yum. Oh, fuck. You're busting, you. In Minecraft, players don't just passively observe their surroundings, they actively participate in shaping them while navigating. As you explore and interact with the world, you're constantly gathering spatial information that you then use to construct mental maps of your surroundings. By mining tunnels, building structures, or exploring new areas. You aren't just engaging in gameplay, but also reinforcing your understanding of the virtual space. This is no different from how we navigate and build mental maps of our physical environments in the real world. Now on the screen right now is a game called Watch Dogs Legion. It's not great, and I wouldn't really recommend you play it, but it confirmed that my keyword, reinforced understanding of London, could be applied to a London made up entirely of pixels. It was oddly intriguing to see how my knowledge of the city helped me navigate this virtual one. It was effortless, thanks to my innate understanding of the space. Years spent developing a cognitive map of the real London, the place I call home, translated seamlessly into this fake London. It was almost impossible for me to get lost. I knew the shortcuts, the back alleys, and the hidden pathways like the back of my hand. All of this was possible despite the fact that this version of London is not even an exact one-to-one replica of the city. And what I found really impressive is that, weirdly, the game helped my real-world knowledge of London. Spending hours in Legion's digital environment somehow managed to strengthen my understanding of the real one. Proof of our brain's unique ability to navigate by reinforcing our comprehension of any space surrounding us. Wayfinding isn't just what we see, it's what we know.
Let's go in the city, let's go see some peeps. Here we go, London Eye. Let's go over Waterloo Bridge, my favourite bridge in London, just for that view. That looks good. Look at that, they've adapted BT Tower into some weird thing. Right, so you can see Somerset House. Wow, that's cool. Okay, so I know in this game it doesn't go as far out as Canary Wharf, but they have actually populated it. You can just see Canary Wharf over there. But look, Tower Bridge, Oxo Tower, Shard, number 1 Blackfriars, ITV Studios, St Paul's Cathedral of course, Cheese Grater, the Walkie Talkie, which is 20 Fenchurch Street, 9 Elms Lane, Palace of Westminster of course. Yeah, this is scarily accurate, you know, all these buildings here.
So to pull back a bit, listen, I get it. Navigation isn't easy, and for some it's impossible, which is why wayfinding is so important. But almost everyone has one place that they know inside and out. A place you've spent years living in. A place you've spent years exploring. A place that your brain has built a near perfect map of. A place called home. And some games are really good at making you feel at home, making you, the player, feel immersed and comfortable by creating spaces that you want to explore and live in. Earlier we briefly touched on how wayfinding works in GTA 5, and Rockstar Games, the developers of the Grand Theft Auto franchise, have always been great at promoting exploration in their game worlds, and there's a reason for this. Dude, if there's a hole in that jacket after this filming session, I'm telling your mum. I'm telling her, hey, I'ma tell her. And you know what she did last time? In Red Dead Redemption 2, players traverse a rich, sprawling world where exploration isn't just encouraged, it's essential for honing spatial awareness and cognitive mapping. Every rugged path and winding river whispers direction, signaling points of interest, pointing towards towns, providing directions to homesteads, or hinting at concealed treasures and hidden mysteries. This subtle yet deliberate encouragement of exploration immerses players in the intricacies of the game world. The sweeping landscapes, the crossroads, the saloons, and the towns aren't just scenic backdrops, they're carefully crafted elements that foster exploration and interaction. Key elements of design that form a silent dialogue between the game and its players. However, beyond all of this lies a world designed with traditional wayfinding design elements. Don't get in front of the camera though. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you will find weathered signposts, placards, and natural landmarks, along with railroads and train tracks
which all help to promote exploration, pulling players through the Wild West's vast expanse, complementing the game world's overarching goal of enhancing the player's spatial awareness. Because the more aware you are of your surroundings, the easier it is to play, the easier it is to immerse, and knowing what's around you makes you, the player, feel more comfortable. But what about a space designed to make you feel uncomfortable? Enter Cyberpunk 2077's Night City, where I argue players can catch a glimpse of the future of wayfinding design, and arguably a glimpse into the more predatory aspects of the art form.
You can design a space to make it easy for people to navigate, to live in. But you can also design a space for you, a giant brand or corporation, to make money.
Las Vegas, Dubai, Amsterdam, New York, Tokyo, and even London come to mind when thinking of spaces designed to lure and guide individuals into a vacuum of consumption, pleasure, and destruction. And the virtual space in Cyberpunk 2077 takes these predatory aspects to an extreme. It's a landscape littered with neon lights and towering skyscrapers, embodying a futuristic dystopia that showcases the gross, dark underbelly of wayfinding design, where corporate greed and advertisements overshadow the fundamental purpose of aiding navigation.
We can navigate people as we wish, actually. We can manipulate how the people will walk around. If they will go with this part of the shopping mall more often, or maybe that part. We had this issue with one airport. They told us that they don't want to navigate people as quick as it possible to the gates, but firstly, after a security, they want to go like with this shopping zone to spend some money. So yeah, you can manipulate as you wish.
100% wayfinding and pathing is designed to sell. Think about any H&M or any kind of store that you might go into. Your entryway, it's got music playing, it's got big open door. You come in, you have bargain stuff often at the front. That's to draw you in, you come in. So absolutely, there is a whole discipline around retail and pathing that goes into how you do what we call conversion, how you get someone from being a browser to a buyer, converting your frame of reference into enjoying the experience so much that you feel like you need it to be part of your life.
I mean, wayfinding design can be used to help people find the places that they need to be, but in the same way, we're very susceptible, and there are some patterns that can easily pull us into wherever anyone wants us to be.
In the 1850s, Paris underwent significant renovations to transform public spaces into sites of middle-class leisure, effectively pacifying social unrest and diverting attention from political insurrection. Haussmann's renovations aimed to pacify Parisians. Night City's design aims to distract, to keep its residents in line, to keep them asleep, by designing a space to make them feel lost, leading them towards the brightest, most misleading sign in their paths. A carefully constructed labyrinth of entertainment and consumption. Proof that Cyberpunk 2077's game world is designed not just as a futuristic gimmick for players to gawk at, but as a tool used to show players how a space can be made to guide and manipulate. Now, you could argue that these visual cues are similar to the signposts of Red Dead Redemption's Old West, but the difference is those signposts weren't trying to sell me something at every turn. So the next time you're in a city, just know that the glowing ads, neon-lit corners, illuminated signs, and flickering signboards all serve as navigational beacons for you to spend and indulge in a city rife with toxic intrigue.
This is why wayfinding and its design are so important. They shape our interactions and perceptions. It's a reminder that the way we move through space isn't neutral. It's influenced by the design choices made by those who shape our environments. So let's run it back for a second. Does wayfinding design make a difference in society? Yes. Does it make a difference in the games we play? Yes. In Michael Bond's book about wayfinding, it talks about the psychology of lost and how important it is for us to be grounded in physical reality. That however much time we spend in our digital worlds, we still need to know where we are. Where we are has a big impact on how we feel. Places can frighten and excite us and make us feel safe. Everyone wants to know where they're going, to know where they are, because it gives us a sense of place and identity. Knowing where you stand in the world is important because the opposite of being lost is being found, to belong. I'm sure we've all heard of the phrase, "I once was lost, but now I'm found," thanks to the Bible and songs like Amazing Grace. Feeling lost, whether spiritually, mentally, or physically, is not a nice feeling. And this is why, as humans, we'll stop at nothing to ensure we always know where we are. I mean, the proof is not only in the world around you, but in the games you play. Because at its core, wayfinding is all about steering people through a world full of choice and consequences. Hideo Kojima's Death Stranding is a great example of this. In the game, you essentially play as an Amazon delivery driver, except you can pee wherever and whenever you want. You play as Sam Porter Bridges, a courier tasked with reconnecting isolated communities in a post-apocalyptic world. And as the player, you must navigate treacherous terrain while balancing cargo and managing resources. Getting lost or disoriented while on your journeys can have tangible consequences. From losing valuable cargo to encountering demons. Don't believe me? There's quite literally a gameplay mechanic to hold your breath. All of the challenges faced by players in this game evoke feelings of anxiety and vulnerability, similar to the psychological implications of getting lost, as discussed by Bond in his book. Because Death Stranding is a game about being lost, a game about isolation and disconnection, a game that emphasizes the importance of not only finding your own way, but helping those who are unable to. While on their solitary journeys, players can leave behind signs, symbols, messages, and structures in the game world for others to discover and utilize, aiding fellow travelers as they navigate the same landscapes. This collaborative aspect of the game encourages players to support and assist each other, fostering a sense of community and interconnectedness in an otherwise isolating environment. It's guidance born from collective exploration. And talking about exploration, I've always loved these things. Yes, it's a dirt path. Perhaps one of the oldest forms of wayfinding, hard baked into the human experience by default. If you walk over the same spot over and over again, you create a path. The beauty of this is that by doing so, you inadvertently lend a helping hand to someone you may never meet.
The worst thing about being lost is the lack not just of the knowledge of where you are, but of other people around you. So even being in a city and not having a connection with the people around you can contribute to that sense of disorientation and rootlessness. But if you feel a connection, even just by using paths that other people use, I think it not only helps build that sort of cognitive map, but also builds a sort of social map, or at least brings that social aspect into the cognitive map. Wayfinding is not just A to B, it's who you're with when you go from one place to another and how you felt when you're making that journey.
Now, in the modern hyper-urbanized world, the path has been reduced to a man-made sidewalk, but you can always trust that the path, dirt or concrete, will lead somewhere. And because the geniuses over at Kojima Productions understood that wayfinding design shapes how we perceive and interact with space, they made this relatively inconsequential thing about life a game mechanic. Similar to reality, in the game, frequent travel over a particular route results in the formation of a dirt path, altering the terrain, making a visible trail. It's a really cool way for players to aid others without even knowing. Okay, so why all the yapping about dirt paths and the mechanics of this game? Well, to repeat myself, Death Stranding is all about connectivity and finding your way. It's a game about human connection and reminded me that I have an innate desire to assist and guide others. I wanted to leave ladders behind for the sole purpose of making someone else's journey easier. I wanted to create roads and bridges so other players could travel faster. I wanted to make rest stops so players could pause and relax. I put up signs to warn players about danger, and most importantly, made sure players didn't get lost. I actually wanted to help people, and wayfinding at its core is about helping people.
A lot of wayfinding is about helping other people. And certainly when you're designing an environment to help people, wayfinding, then that's inherent in that task.
Wayfinding is people-centric. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. Wayfinding just isn't about putting signs up. It's about guiding the human experience. So wayfinding to me is orienting people to the spaces that they want to go to or want to be in a way that they feel included, oriented, and can get what they need to get done.
It helps people in a lot of different places. Also, I've mentioned about like some firefighters or maybe ambulance. Without any information on like the buildings, without any wayfinding system on a street, they will not be able to find some apartments. They will not be able to help you when the help is needed.
The one thing that hurts as an LD is when someone is in your space and they get lost. Because there's a difference between exploring to explore and exploring because you have no idea where you're supposed to go.
Beyond the digital landscapes of video games and virtual spaces, wayfinding's essence resonates deeply within our societal fabric. It isn't just about guiding individuals physically, it shapes our emotional responses, influences behaviors, and impacts decision-making. Granted, this can be done in one of two ways, to either help or be hostile. But weirdly, wayfinding makes us feel safe and heard. And there are architects, urban planners, visual designers, and even game designers and level designers who use wayfinding principles to create spaces that we can navigate easily and freely, ensuring we never get lost. You aren't able to walk around your neighborhood with ease just because it's your neighborhood. You're able to do that because your eyes know what to look for. Your ability to endlessly explore in Minecraft, to practically drive around Los Santos with your eyes closed, it doesn't just come down to you being familiar with these spaces, it's because your mind has built a cognitive map of your surroundings thanks to exploration guided by wayfinding. And many of us don't realize this, because great wayfinding design is subtle and subconscious, guiding our attention and actions without us even realizing it. The layout of shelves in a supermarket, the design of a website, the colors, shapes, and symbols that direct us toward desired outcomes, the public transportation systems with these terrifying things that they call maps. One last time, what am I looking at? All these little elements help people find their way, creating a sense of safety and familiarity, contributing to a cohesive societal and gaming experience, affecting how we interact and perceive our surroundings. Wayfinding design isn't just about navigation, it's about influencing human behavior, fostering connections, and shaping our experiences with space, whether physically or virtually. So no matter how far off track you may feel, no matter how lost you may be, just look around. There's always a sign waiting to help.